The Italian Wine Podcast is the community-driven platform for Italian wine geeks around the world. Support the show by donating at ItalianWinePodcast.com. Donate €5 or more and we'll send you a copy of our latest book, My Italian Grape Geek Journal, absolutely free. To get your free copy of My Italian Grape Geek Journal, click Support Us at ItalianWinePodcast.com or wherever you get your pods. Grazie mille. Official media partner, the Italian Wine Podcast, is delighted to present a series of interviews and highlights from the 2023 Wine2Wine Business Forum, featuring Italian wine producers and bringing together some of the most influential voices in the sector to discuss the hottest topics facing the industry today. Don't forget to tune in every Thursday at 3 p.m. or visit theitalianwinepodcast.com for more information.
Okay, everyone, here's for Laura Catena, the woman with this gaucho beret.
Thank you for not saying it's a French beret.
Yeah. Okay, so welcome. This is going to be a little different. She does have some slides, some visuals, but we're going to be a little interactive. So anytime if you have an intelligent question, okay, let me repeat. If you have an intelligent question at any point, raise your hand high. And we have the two women with the poncho. Okay. You see, it's very thematic, right? You raise your hand and we'll get the mic to you. Okay. So at any point, this is about social media. I mean, you guys, how many of you, don't be embarrassed. How many of you do not know who Laura Catena is? 2, 3, 4, 5 people. So, no, a little bit more.
Expel them.
Yeah, okay. Get the hell out. Okay, so first of all, Laura Catena, her Google CV it's embarrassing. I mean, I'm sorry. You know, she is what I call the Antinori of Argentina. So when you think of Malbec, when you think of Argentinian wine, of course, is the Catena Zapata. I think they are absolutely the benchmark wine producer in Argentina. But it hasn't always been easy. I know that it kind of started your career in 1995. They were the first Argentinian winery to do the Wine Star presentation at Wine Experience. Is that
That's
correct?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Laura is the 4th generation. Is that correct?
4th in Argentina, 6th if we count the 2 in Italy.
Okay,
before.
so she's actually originally from, your family's originally from Marche.
Si.
Okay, so she does speak a little bit Italian, or a lot. Abbastanza.
Abbastanza.
Okay, but this will be in English. Okay, so they immigrated to stateside, your family.
Yes.
And then when did you really start making wine? Your dad, right?
No, so my great-grandfather, Nicola Catena, in 1902, planted his first vines in Mendoza.
Okay. Look at the audience. Look at the TV.
They're bored. Is that what you're saying? I've been told at all the conferences lately that you're not supposed to talk about your great-grandfather.
Okay, all right. So forget that. Okay.
Yes.
And I mean, her accomplishments personally, she's what we call in Italian secchione. Do you know that word?
No.
Okay, secchione means someone who does extremely well at school, someone who excels. They get, A+ in everything that they do. Of course, she's a Harvard undergrad, and then she got her medical degree in Stanford. I mean, come on, it's really sad. It's depressing. She makes us look all very, very bad. Okay.
Okay, Stevie, stop.
Okay,
stop. No,
but
you make me look bad because you have the great sense of humor, which I admire more than any secchione.
Okay, thank you very much. But today we're not going to be talking a lot about the wines or viticulture. They also have a research institute. Yes. We're going to be talking about social media. Okay, so her winery has been declared as the #1 winery, the best vineyard in the world. Now, who decides that anyway?
Wait,
do you want to do a little presentation?
I think we should put the slides on.
Okay, why don't we do that?
Okay, so the world's best vineyards. I have to admit that I've had many producers come talk to me and say, Laura, did you pay for the world's best vineyards? And I want to tell everybody here that I did not pay anything. This is an organization that is part of the 50 best restaurants. Is everybody familiar with 50 best restaurants? That they give awards in Latin America, all over the world. And it's become very important for restaurants. Well, the same organization decided to do an award around wine. And you commented on Antinori. Last year, actually, the winner was Antinori. And it's an award that's given based on your reputation, the quality of your wines, and the quality of your hospitality. And when Stevie asked me to give this talk, I thought I would talk about the award and also talk about the repercussion it had in social media and how maybe our presence in social media helped us get voted World's Best Vineyards. So to answer the question, basically this group of the World's Best Vineyards travels around the world. They have to have been to a winery to review it. And then there's a vote with a list of wineries. And then whoever wins, wins. And I won it last year in Spain, which I think was a bit sad for the Spaniards because there are some really amazing Spanish wineries, but it's a vote. There's over 500 journalists that vote for this award. So it was a huge honor, an incredible surprise. We were not expecting it. And I hope to tell you the story of why we were voted. And I chose social media because you're a group of wine producers, wine journalists, people in the trade, and I know we all think a lot about how we do our social media. And, right now I'm trying to figure out, do I do TikTok? Do I not do TikTok? I'm not
But you're
that
not
good
on TikTok yet?
I've done one TikTok.
Okay, one.
It's terrible.
How's that going for you?
I'm terrible on TikTok, but I want to do it. But again, what you will see with this presentation is that there is the day zero where you start, and at some point you just have to do it and choose how to present yourself authentically. And that's what I'm going to show you today. So here it is, World's Best Vineyards, Catena Zapata. This was an image that appeared on their social media for World's Best Vineyard. And here is the social media at our winery. So you're going to see Catena Wines, Laura Catena, Alejandro Vigil Malbec, who is the winemaker that I co-wrote the book that I was presenting 15 minutes ago. And you will notice that he's got a lot more followers than I do. And I actually started his Instagram. I came one day from the US. I don't know, maybe, how long ago did Instagram start? Does anybody know? I think it was less. How many? 2011. So it just started. I went to Argentina. I said, Alejandro, here, you should do Instagram. You'd be so good. I took his phone. I put him on Instagram. And he is so good at it and an incredible communicator. And today, I don't know, does anybody know a winemaker that has more than 200,000 followers? So he is really a sensation, really, really good at it. I was a bit lazy at the beginning. And then somebody actually challenged me, hey, Laura, let's get up to 50,000 followers. And then I've been doing a lot more lately. But the one, anecdote I'd like to say for the producers here is that if there's somebody in your team, a winemaker, a viticulturalist that is better than you, support them because it's good for your winery. And what Alejandro has done on social media is just extraordinary. And he, I think, has brought a lot of attention to our wines and our winery because he's really good at it. And you should follow him. He's really quite fun.
2010, by the way.
2010. So I think I probably opened his around then. Okay, so this is when we got the World's Best Vineyard.
Are you enjoying this podcast? There is so much more high-quality wine content available from Mama Jumbo Shrimp. Check out our new wine study maps, our books on Italian wine, including Italian Wine Unplugged, The Jumbo Shrimp Guide to Italian Wine, Sangiovese Lambrusco and Other Stories, and much, much more on our website, mamajumboshrimp.com. Now back to the show.
This is the post that Alejandro made, and he actually didn't make it because he was stuck on an in an airport. He said that, but he was with his wife drinking wine in a restaurant in Italy on his social media. So that's the other thing. You can track people on social media. He didn't make it because he didn't think we would win the award. And here I was getting the award. And what was funny about this image, you see I'm doing the John Lennon thing. That was, I just was so surprised and happy. I thought I'd do something. And my son used to do that when he would make a goal in football. And the crazy thing is, this is the symbol of a political party in Argentina. We're about to go to elections this Sunday. And everybody in Argentina thought I was making a symbol for that political party. And the thing I want to say about this is, you cannot possibly care about these things. I don't care. Well, it's John Lennon, it's whatever. I was happy. I made this sign. I got all kinds of messages like, Laura, are you for this bad politician or this thing? You have to ignore everything. I do, because, it was a really good moment and I was very happy. And there's Tim Atkins.
Yeah, I don't understand. Go back
Yeah.
1 second. Everyone has like a coat and a jacket, and you're kind of naked. What's going on here?
I was wearing a dress of my daughter's that literally when I packed, and I didn't know I was going to get this award. And so, yeah, I forgive me for my outfit. But it was actually kind of cold. It was the evening in Spain.
Yeah, I can see.
Yes,
I can see by everybody else except you.
Yes.
Okay.
It was quite fun.
But you have your signature gaucho beret.
I had the gaucho beret. So this was the post by the winery. And, the comment I want to make, that's a lot, 27,000, for us. We don't get this many people every time. That what I have found about social media is that wine drinkers really want to be happy for you. They want to celebrate your wins. So at first I thought, is it bragging? I was taught to be somewhat humble. But honestly, I find that in social media, put it out there, people want to celebrate you. And I personally, when I have friends, for example, if I see that a friend that is a sommelier and the restaurant gets an award, I always highlight them in my stories because I love to be able to celebrate somebody on social media. So don't be shy. Okay, so a little bit about what my father taught me. And it's really funny because a lot of these presentations are saying that the millennials, the young people, they don't want to hear about the past. But I love to talk about my father, my great-grandfather from Italy, and all this history. And my father has been the most incredible mentor that I think anybody could ever have. And when I started working with him, as Stevie said, I trained as a biologist and then as a medical doctor, so I didn't know anything about how to sell. I didn't even know what the word marketing meant. I kept on hearing marketing this, marketing that. So one day I asked my father, who has a PhD in economics, I said, Papa, can you explain to me what is marketing? Is it the advertising? Is it designing a label? And he said, Laurita, there is one thing you need to know. Always try to be different. If you try to be the best and say you're the best, it would be very easy for somebody to come the next day and get, a higher rating or a better award. And, they say, well, you're not the best anymore. But if you do something different, people remember and you always win. And I know this is kind of, the first day of marketing 101 class, they teach you this. But it's not so easy to be different in an effective way. So I'm going to show you here in this presentation a bit of how at Catena Zapata we have been different and how I think that may explain, some of why we got this award. So this is from this book that I highly recommend. It's only about 20 pages. You can buy it online. And it's by James Webb Young. I think it's a book from like the 60s or 70s. It's an old book. But he gives this idea for producing ideas. And obviously, you don't just read this book and come up with a bunch of ideas, but the method that he uses is the method that I use. Gather material. Being here, I am going to leave this conference with at least 20 new ideas. But not just going to wine conferences, go to museums, travel, go to science forums, anything, you will get ideas from anything you learn throughout your life. Think, so you basically, take notes, you study, take a break. This is very, very important. I find that, I don't know, who has ideas that you wake up in the middle of the night with ideas? Yeah, so I always go to bed with a piece of paper, and now you just use your phone by my bed. I would say at least, a third of any good idea I've had has been in the middle of the night or right when you wake up. I write it down and then I go back to sleep. And then the idea starts appearing. And part of the development that I think is really important is to seek criticism. I don't know if you can read this, but it says, refine and rework idea, see if idea meets requirements, expand idea, ask for criticism. I think this is one of the hardest things to do because we fall in love with our ideas. I fall in love with, do you fall in love with your ideas, Stevie?
No.
Yes. So it's really hard to hear criticism, but you need to create an environment around you, the people you work with, your colleagues, so that they feel comfortable criticizing your ideas. Because I don't think I've ever had an idea that turned out to be good, that the original idea was the idea. It's always the second, third, or fourth version of that idea that becomes what ends up working really well. So this is really, really important to receive criticism.
I actually have another version about ideas. I always say ideas are free, right? Because everyone has an idea. So many people have ideas. We have meetings. Everyone has an idea. But I say the ideas are absolutely free unless it's executable form. Then it becomes something important. But just having an idea is not enough.
I agree with you on execution that often many people come with ideas and not that many can execute them. However, I think that a really good idea is better than a not so good idea in terms of, the field of ideas. And often the execution is easier on an idea that turned out to be really good. And some ideas are too hard to execute. So yes, execution and the idea come in hand. But if you have a good organization, Stephen, I know you do, if we come up with a really good idea, we're going to do the execution. And so I think that, don't go work in a company where there's a bunch of ideas and nobody's doing the execution because, as you said, you're not going to be successful. So you notice the winery, the shape. What is it? There's a pyramid, right? So when my father needed to build a winery for our wines that was near the high altitude region that he had discovered as the best region for making wine, the traditional area where my great grandfather had planted was around, 800 meters elevation where it's too warm. So he wanted to go to the cooler climate to make more elegant, balanced, concentrated wines. And so he had to find a style. And at first he was rather tempted to build something Italian, perhaps because we are of Italian origin. Malbec is a French grape. We went to California and visited all these wineries. There's wineries that appear like, a palazzo or a French building. And then he went to Central America just on a vacation. He was not going to look at wineries. And he was really inspired by the Mayan architecture and the pyramids. And he thought, okay, we're in South America. We have this Italian origin, but our terroir is very different. So he had studied the Mayans a lot, and they were a very advanced civilization who understood, agriculture, math. They had a very sophisticated language. And he decided to take inspiration in the Mayans, who are the native civilization of the Americas, who didn't actually make it to Argentina. We had the Incas in the north of Argentina, but he wanted to honor this civilization of the Americas. So this, is a very different concept, right, to have a pyramid. And today you get to this pyramid and it seems almost like a temple. It's really unusual and people tend to not forget it. And that's why being different is really important, because when you see something very different, you often don't forget it. And part of our goal here is for people to remember what we say as opposed to the millions of things they hear. And it becomes even more important with social media because we're so, bombarded with new information. This is a Bloomberg story about the winery, which was very, very important because, a lot of these awards, nobody cares, nobody knows if it's important. But when a few really credible journalists like Bloomberg, this award for all the wine people here, in my opinion, was the most important award we've ever had. And we've had 100 points and Wine Spectator things. But this award was commented on in the normal press, in the lifestyle press, in Korea, in Italy. It was in several newspapers, in Spain, all over Latin America, in the US, in Australia. And anyhow, I was very surprised myself because I had never seen any kind of wine news be so widely communicated. And this is something that Wine Spectator did. They picked who they thought were the 12 most beautiful, they called them chateaus, but wineries in the world. And one of the wineries was our Here I Am with Alejandro, the winemaker with the 200,000 followers. I told my social media team at the winery, guys, complete humiliation. If Alejandro has more followers than the winery, what are we doing? So now they're really stressed out that they need to try to compete with Alejandro, which is a healthy competition.
So how big is your social media team? What is the composition?
Okay, so our social media team is one person.
One person?
Yes, one person and an intern. So we have a designer at the winery, one in Mendoza, one in Buenos Aires, because we do our own sales in Argentina, like a lot of Italian producers, you do your own distribution in Italy. We do that in Argentina. And we have a person in Mendoza.
So many questions. First of all,
Yeah.
I see most of the slides are focused on Instagram posts.
Yes.
Are you doing other stuff?
Yes.
Is Instagram your main?
Yeah, so this is a very good question in terms of, what do you do? Do you do Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok? And my theory has always been to do one of them correctly. So we do mostly Instagram, but we also post on Facebook and we are in Twitter. And I think LinkedIn is becoming very important these days. And Alejandro, our winemaker, he's also on TikTok. He's ahead of us in everything. And, I'm always, talking to him about it, and he is just amazing. I don't know how he manages to make all these wines, and he actually does his own social media. He does not have a person who does it, and I can tell you that because he drives and does social media at the same time, which makes me very upset. And he doesn't do it when he's with me.
You have an insurance policy?
Yeah, no, but I'm serious. I give him a very hard time. So yes, we have one person and we have an intern. So for people who are in wineries, how many of you have an intern program for interns that come and spend? Okay, so I see a few hands. I highly, highly recommend that you have interns for social media. We currently have a UCLA graduate in design. She is fantastic. She takes pictures, she makes posts. Of course, her English is perfect, which is helpful because Miguel, our social media guy, speaks and writes in English, but never as well as a native. And we have now a house in Mendoza for the interns. We have harvest interns. We have the social media intern. We have somebody that helps us with databases and more business intelligence. We had a British guy recently. And I tell you, these interns have a lot of energy. And they often bring a talent that is a little different and is good for social media because, they're often young people in their 20s who understand that because they've grown up with it. So, okay, so this slide, now I want to move to a different thing, which is Malbec. So, who knows that Malbec is a variety that's famous from Argentina? Okay, so I think pretty much all of you, right? There was a day in the early 90s where no one knew anything about Malbec. Maybe if you were a master of wine, you knew it was one of the 5 Bordeaux varieties. But nobody knew we made it in Argentina. There were no single varietal Malbecs from Argentina. And so really when we started with Malbec, it was mostly doing something different. Everybody else thought you should do Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay, or whatever. I remember telling my father, listen, the Australians are doing so well with Shiraz. Why don't we do Malbec? And my father's like, but is Malbec good? And, why did the French get rid of it? And so what I did is I did a lot of reading about Malbec in the ancient books in France. And that's where I found this history that the main problem with Malbec was that the yields were low. But actually, at the time of the 1855 classification, there was more Malbec than Cabernet Sauvignon planted in the Médoc, which when I go to France and I tell people, they say, oh, that doesn't surprise me. But doesn't that surprise you that in the 19th century, there was more Malbec than Cabernet Sauvignon planted in the Médoc, or Merlot?
Phylloxera.
Right. And then phylloxera comes, and the problem is that Malbec had a lot of problems with the fruit set, and it has some problems with grafting. And for all these different reasons, it mostly doesn't get replanted. However, right before phylloxera, it comes to Argentina, where it's just very well adapted to the terroir. In Argentina, for example, if you're making, Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, Bonarda, which is, our Italian grape, you kind of have to pick the place. You can't plant it anywhere. But Malbec makes different wines. Some are better than others, but it makes pretty good wine in any terroir. Different tasting, but good wine. So it really is a variety. Maybe it's the deep root system that does well with not as much water, with the mountain climate. We don't know exactly why, but it's one of these immigrants that, like Stevie, doing well as an Italian. You're a good immigrant example.
Yeah, Korean American in Italy.
Korean American in Italy. Yeah.
Crazy, right?
Look at what you've accomplished. Okay, so Malbec. It was not obvious that Malbec was going to be this big thing, right? But we went all out with Malbec, and this is a timeline that I created, and I wrote a book. Malbec Mon Amour is the book I talked about today, but my previous book, Gold in the Vineyards, talks about the Grand Crus of the world and mentions the Adriana vineyard, one of our vineyards with Malbec. And the reason for this slide is that nothing is obvious. So there was a time around 2010 where, Malbec had become very popular and people were asking me, oh, what's the new thing from Argentina? As if Malbec was some kind of a fashion. And I realized that we needed to do a lot of work to show the subtleties of Malbec, the terroir of Malbec, the regionality of Malbec. And rather than switch to talking about other varieties, which was what everybody else was doing, they were talking about Torrontés, Bonarda, all these different things. I said, we need to talk more about Malbec. And this was a very deliberate movement. And I want to show this label. Has anybody seen this label, the Malbec Argentina label? So not many of you. So if we were in the US right now, it would be at least 50% of people would raise their hand. So this is the first label in the world that tells the history of a variety on its label. And it starts with Eleanor of Aquitaine, Anna Moschetta, my Italian great-grandmother. Phylloxera is the third female. And then it's my sister. Phylloxera mostly exists in the female form. That's why it was a perfect villain. And this has been our most successful label ever. If you put this bottle on social media, automatically more likes than anything else.
Why do you think? What is your opinion?
People just like the way it looks. They like the fact that it tells a story. They hear the story from a friend who tells them the story. They look for the label. It's also easy to say, hey, it's the label with the 4 women. It's easy to remember. And it's been just an incredible success. And the point I want to make, this is my sister Adriana and her husband Gustavo and my little nephew Antonio.
But is Adriana in the wine business? She's not.
Adriana is in the wine business, and this is how I got her in the wine business.
Uh-huh.
So this is her graduation from Oxford University. She has a PhD in history. And when I was having this problem with the popularity...
Is anyone stupid in your family?
Yeah.
I mean, this is terrible.
No, we just study a lot. I'm not sure how smart we are, but we do study. So I went to my sister, who was a professor in history, and I said, Adriana, tell me, how do I tell the story of Malbec? Because all these people are asking me, what's next after Malbec? And Malbec is this 2,000-year-old grape. How could it be replaced? And I thought she was always criticizing my PowerPoints. She was saying, oh, you do terrible PowerPoints. The little sister, they're always criticizing you. And I said, Adriana, this is your opportunity to make the best PowerPoint presentation ever. And she says, Laura, I have a better idea. Why don't you put that story on the label? And what I wanted to tell you with this anecdote is that with ideas, you use everybody in your family, in your entourage, ask people for opinions, for ideas, because there will be somebody around you that know something that you don't know, and you need to use them for your creativity and for your execution. Because I needed somebody to write that story who knew the history and who could tell that story. And she's actually a lot of what she does is art history. So she actually came up with the design and the idea of following the allegories of the continents. Does anybody know about the allegories of the continents? No, right? I'd never heard. I mean, I've seen them in a museum, but it would never cross my mind to do a label, a wine label with the allegories of the continents, right? And this is where talking to a historian is so helpful. I always say, if you're wondering, if you're a wine family and your kids want nothing to do with wine, like I did, I wanted to be a doctor, let them study whatever, because everything is useful. And this is her husband, right? He is a playwright. So I said, okay, my sister helped with the label. Let's see if her husband can help us. And he wrote a play, which was performed. This is Tina Bastian. She's a beautiful, wonderful British actress. And we have performed the play all over the world. This is in Singapore, actually, at Conchita. She's performing. And he wrote a play, a 15 to 30-minute play about the history of Malbec. Eleanor of Aquitaine and Ana Moscheta switching from one to the next. And it was a really different way to tell the history of wine, and very, very successful. Oh, I will skip because we are... How many more minutes do I have?
How many more slides have you got?
About 5.
Okay. Let's, we have about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay.
Okay.
So this is... the reason I have this old vine, I got this Old Vine Hero Award last year. And the reason I wanted to show this slide is that this is an idea that started, maybe almost 20 years ago. I was at the Naples Wine Auction, which is this big event in America where people pay millions of dollars for experiences in wine country. And there was a very famous person there, Aubert de Villaine from Burgundy. And I went to talk to him about my Pinot Noir clones, the Dijon clones that we had planted in Mendoza. And he looked at me very politely and said, basically, those are crap. That's terrible stuff, the Dijon clones. He said, it's all about Massal selections. And he was telling me about the Massal work he was doing with Pinot Noir in Burgundy. And I was standing next to him, this was in the mid-90s, and I realized, oh my God, we have the Massal selections of Malbec. Our family has a selection of 135 cuttings. All our vineyards are planted with Massal selections. Argentina's vineyards are 90% Massal, 92% ungrafted. Does anybody know that? So we've got basically about 180,000 hectares of ungrafted vineyards in Argentina. And until I talked to Aubert de Villaine, I didn't realize that this was something of any importance, because it was what I knew. And that's the other comment I would make is, what you know from your own region, I don't know, talk to people from other regions, because they think very different things. Now, I was talking about old vines and ungrafted and Massal selections for 20 years, and nobody seemed to care. Until recently in Europe, it has become a very big thing. And I was just at the Master of Wine Symposium, and people were talking about that because it is such an important thing for biodiversity, right? For climate change, we need genetic diversity. And these Massal selections in Argentina are like, vineyard gold. I like to say that for Malbec, Argentina is the old world, not the new world. Because we have these ancient pre-phylloxera selections, the biodiversity, and the ungrafted vines. And all I wanted to say was that if you have some idea that you're really passionate about and nobody cares, don't stop talking about it. Because if you really care about it, and it's important, just continue. And someday you might get this Old Vine Hero Award because it's an important topic. And currently all of a sudden it's fashionable, but I've been talking about this for 20 years. This is just we were in the top 100 with one of my wines with old vines. It's called Luca. And I just want to share with you that people really do want to celebrate you. I can't believe I never get 18,000 views for anything. And it was just some little simple video saying thank you. And it's important to to share your successes with people. It's okay. You don't have to be humble when something really good happens. This is the book that I was talking about. Here's Alejandro, the social media guru. The book was a bestseller in Argentina. It was actually very successful. I do just want to show this. It was Malbec World Day, and
Papá,
we didn't have a good video.
contame una historia del Malbec que recuerdes de tu juventud.
Recuerdo cuando mi abuelo Nicola venía a almorzar con nosotros. Había que poner 2 botellas, una de Bonarda y otra de Malbec. Mi abuelo tomaba Bonarda, pero mi padre prefería el Malbec. Mi padre estaba enamorado del Malbec. Mi padre fue mi inspiración para introducir el Malbec argentino en el mundo en los años 90.
Feliz día del Malbec.
I just feel like I can speak Spanish the way your father pronounces.
Isn't he? So,
yeah, it's neat.
So I was just at another conference in Portugal, and everybody keeps on saying, stop talking about your grandfather. I mean, is my father like one of the cutest people you have ever seen? Like, he's adorable. And so everybody loves him. When I post a photo with him, I get trillions of likes. Talk about whatever you're passionate about. If somebody says, this is now fashionable, this is not fashionable, you don't care. Be authentic and talk about what you care about, and people will see that. This is 100 point. The comment I want to make here is I think the photo is really bad and it's blurry, but I posted it anyhow because it was the photo I had. And my advice on social media is, if you don't have the perfect photo, post anyhow because it's a time thing. You have to do it when you get the award. I might skip through this. We have a wine called Elegant Microbes of the Earth, Mundus Bacillus Terrae, in Latin. And the reason it's in Latin is because I thought that these terroirs should be classified like Linnaeus classified the species, because they are a new kind of flavor from a specific place. And at first I was told, I remember I was with these very fancy French journalists, and they said, Laura, you cannot have the word bacillus on a label. Like it might mean that it's contaminated. This is a one that's been around for, a long, maybe 16 years, and no more, 18 years. And, today everybody's talking about the microbes in the soil. So again, if you think something's important, go with it. And everybody calls it mundus, and nobody's ever commented again about the word bacillus. And the name comes from the microbes. We did a microbial study and found very different and interesting microbes, and a microbe that had never been described in the world in the soil of this vineyard. And so I thought we should honor that microbe on the label. This is our new restaurant, which has a concept called Wine First, where the menu is wine and the pairing is food. So the food is the wine, and the food, the real food is the pairing. We have one food menu, 7 wine menus, and it's been really successful. We do, 7 different glasses of different wines. We have one menu called the roller coaster, where you go from, red to sparkling to red to rosé, and people love it. And again, it was doing something that was different. Wine as the food instead of the food as the wine. And this is a little bit about the winery experience. One last comment is wine and music. So I love, playing music while I drink wine. I think a lot of us are, fairly obsessed with music. And it's, to me, wine and music are 2 of my sensory experiences. And so we were doing this tasting, and we had a lot of thought about, should we pick particular songs? Because what we do is we do 1 wine, 2 songs. We play the songs, and then the guests choose which is the best pairing. And it's so much fun. And at first, we wanted to have like a playlist. And then when I was talking to the tourism guides at the winery, they all had so many ideas, and I decided to make it open, that they could pick their own songs depending on the group of visitors. And my one last comment would be, when you work with people, don't try to micromanage people, because people's best creativity comes when they can show their own passion. And I think this is so important in hospitality, that everybody that works in hospitality has their own passion, and let them shine through that. Of course, they need to tell the story of your winery, which has certain elements, but then the rest should be their own personality. And in this wine and music, I mean, sometimes we have opera, sometimes we have, Brazilian music, sometimes we have rock and roll or jazz, depending on the tour guide. And it's our most successful tasting. We also have a wine blending session and something about family. And I'm going to say, final thing. So sometimes a post goes very badly. I'm going to show do I just press play? Okay, so look at this video. Okay, so what's wrong with that image? What's wrong?
Well, it's not very sustainable.
Right? Okay, so I had been walking by the ocean, and I had this vision, and I'm not that good of a photographer. I'm quite bad. I've gotten better doing social media. But I thought, won't this be so beautiful, this bottle, with the waves going around? I was thinking of, the bottle in the olden days, you throw the bottle with the message. Okay, so I wake up in the morning really early. You see, that's very good lighting. And I go take this video, and I put the bottle, and the bottle falls. Of course, I'm watching it. I stop the video, and I run in. Obviously, I am not going to let this bottle go in the ocean, because, I'm not a crazy person that's going to pollute the ocean. However, if you watch this video, you think that I just let that bottle go and that I'm the worst person you've ever met, right? Like polluting the ocean with the bottle. So I make this post, and I had to get in the car and drive 2 hours. And I start getting these crazy calls from the winery, like, Laura, it's like emergency, emergency, emergency. And so finally I stop the car, and they say, there is like the social media, everybody is writing all these terrible things about this post, that you are polluting the ocean. And I'm thinking, well, of course I picked up the bottle. Like, who would not pick up that bottle? And anyhow, what I'm saying is, I answered all those people, and I think, obviously, if they didn't believe me, I don't care, because, I picked up the bottle. But what I'm saying is, there is going to be a time where you're going to do something potentially really dumb, and whatever. Forgive yourself, and, don't beat yourself up over it.
Okay, great. Listen, let's give it up for Laura Catena. We have 55 seconds, but I will open the floor to a question to the floor. I've intimidated everybody. Okay. But what is, I guess the whole point is you're leveraging also the wine tourism, right? That's kind of the magical, coinage of wine tourism, Enotourism. Okay. But what is sustainable wine tourism for you?
Well, we actually brought the sustainability code to Argentina. There wasn't one. And it's now used by many, many wineries. And we have sustainability in everything we talk about at the winery. We walk out to the vineyards. We show work we do with cover crops, with preserving water, with, the biodiversity, this plant selection I've been talking about. We are now doing a new campaign with lower weight bottles, where we're introducing 380 gram bottles of fairly expensive wine. And so at the restaurant, we're going to be doing like an education campaign for the customers. And we have reduced our weight by 40% of all our glass in the last 10 years. And this is something that we communicate. So we have a sustainability certification, and it's part of the language when we're talking about the wines. My big topic now for sustainability is the whole wine and health topic, which I think is part of the the overall sustainability of wine as
I
an
mean,
industry.
if you Google Laura Catena, wine and health, you'll get a lot of information about that as well. Because you don't say necessarily wine is great, right? Because you're also a medical doctor.
Yeah. Well, I think wine in moderation is great. I can say that confidently. But wine in not moderation is very bad. And that would be another hour that we don't have.
We don't have time for that now. So I'm going to close up this session because we have the institutional session coming up of Verona Fiere here in 15 minutes time. Thank you all very much. And she'll be here for Q&A privately.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, Cin Cin.